Good afternoon. Welcome to the Candidate Forum for the Northfield Township High School District 225 School Board. This forum is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Glenview-Glencoe. The League is a nonpartisan political organization. We never support or oppose candidates or political parties. We are also political in that we take action on government issues for which positions have been adopted through extensive member study and agreement. The League encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and seeks to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Thomas Jefferson, one of our forefathers, once said, "An educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people." And we as a league, believing in that statement, this is why we host these candidate forums, so that the voters in each election can become educated about the candidates on the ballot and cast an informed vote. Let me introduce the school board candidates. Jim Geldermann, Paul Kelly, who is not able to join us today, Sandra Muhlenbeck, Marcelo Sztainberg, and Skip Shein. These 5 candidates are running for 3 positions. Some key dates on the upcoming election. Today is the last day to register to vote online. Tomorrow begins the first day of early voting, which runs for about almost 2 weeks. Actually, it runs a little bit more than 2 weeks, including weekends. And Tuesday, April 4th is election day. Even with spring break coming up, this allows enough time for any voter to cast a ballot either through the mail or in person and make sure to exercise their right to vote on by election day. Some of the high-level ground rules. We will begin with opening statements following alphabetically by the candidate's first name. Opening statements are 2 minutes long. Questions to the candidates have been selected by the league and the moderator from those submitted by voters in the district. The moderator may ask a follow-up question at her discretion. Each question will be directed and answered by all candidates. Candidates will be given up to 90 seconds to respond to a question. Candidates will respond to questions in alternating order. They will all be given up to 90 seconds for a closing statement delivered with continuation of an alternating order format. And finally, statements and responses will be timed and prompts will be visible to all candidates and viewers. The League of Women Voters is available to all the candidates as well as any viewer or voter who views this forum subsequent to its recording today. You can reach us either through our website or through our email at lwvglens@gmail.com. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Laurie Bergner. Laurie is a member of the League of Women Voters of McLean County. She is a 2-term president for that league, and she's a highly experienced moderator, having moderated many forums and educational programs. Laurie, you may begin.
Okay, let's take it away. So it's nice to meet all of you. And we're going to start with our up to 2 minutes for opening statements. And we're going to start with Jim Geldermann.
Thank you. And thank you for the league for putting this forum together. A couple months ago, I walked into a bar, usually the beginning of a bad dad joke or a bad idea, and I went in to sign a petition, and I made the mistake of asking, is there anything I can do to help? Expecting maybe empty ashtrays, fill candy bowls, make coffee. But they said they needed candidates to run for this position. So I volunteered to run for the position. I was not asked my opinion on any issues in the district, and I prefer it that way. I stand for citizens volunteering to serve their community. I'm running as a good governance candidate, meaning I am here to represent the taxpayers and parents of the district. I'm not promoting or fighting any political agenda. I plan to serve to ensure the district fulfills its primary mission of educating our students in the principles of citizenship, promoting student competency at grade level, guiding students to career paths that are personally fulfilling and financially responsible, and building and maintaining a strong relationship among teachers, administrators, students, and parents. I'm an independent candidate, not associated with any group. I do not have an agenda, and I'm not endorsed by any group that may cause or be a direct conflict of interest as a role as a board member. I believe that the health of the board is dependent upon board members serving as volunteers, not as entrenched unpaid consultants. One service on a volunteer board should inspire other citizens of the community to volunteer. Thank you.
Okay. Next will be Marcelo Sztainberg.
Thank you, Laurie, and thank you, Susan and the League for hosting us today. I do believe not only on citizens participating, but also on citizens participating by sending questions and having the right to get direct answers to their questions. So I think this is really important. As you mentioned, my name is Marcelo Sztainberg. I've been living in Northbrook since 2003. I'm originally from Argentina, from the city of Buenos Aires. And at least to me, an interesting experience. I didn't do high school here. So when I decided to volunteer to the board, I came from a different point of view. My whole K-12 experience was done not only in a different language, but in a different culture and in a different system. Both of my sons went through the whole K-12 system in Northbrook, and one of them graduated from GBN in 2018, and the other one graduated in 2020, the infamous year of the graduation, pandemic graduation. But both of them had a great experience in school. As a parent, as a member of the district, and as somebody who always had some sort of curiosity of how things work, and as somebody who's always been in education, I was interested in joining the board in 2017, and I got the opportunity to join there. And this is my 6th year as a board member, and I'm looking for one more term in this election. As I mentioned, I'm an educator. I've been working at Northeastern Illinois University for the last 20 years. Started as a professor. I teach computer science and mathematics. I also do research, and lately I've been doing academic administration. And one thing that I think I bring to the board, it's kind of also a different point of view in terms of understanding a little bit where teachers come from. And that doesn't mean a compromise or anything like that, but understanding what it takes to be a teacher. We normally hear about these stories, but it's a little bit different to stand in front of a classroom. It's a little bit different to prepare a class, to prepare a curriculum. And regardless of what teachers think and the personal point of view, there's a common thread. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Sandy Muhlenbeck.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Glenview-Glencoe and also my fellow candidates for participating in this forum. My name is Sandy Muhlenbeck. I'm a first-time candidate for the Glenbrook District 225 High School Board. I plan on bringing new perspectives to the board while collaborating with incumbent members to continue the work that we all believe is so important, providing a high-quality, well-rounded education to all of our students in a welcoming, inclusive environment. I recognize that the Glenbrooks are tremendous assets for our community and that the district board has a responsibility to all constituents to provide public education that reflects the values of Glenview and Northbrook residents. As a parent of former and current Glenbrook students, I know that the teachers and staff are committed to the best interests of our students, and I trust their professional judgment regarding curricula and instructional materials. As a pediatric nurse and a founding member of Glenview Pride, I know the important role that schools play in nurturing the well-being of the whole child. As an employee of District 34, I have a firsthand view in the diversity of the Glenbrook's next generation of learners. And in short, I believe I have the passion and the experience to effectively serve on the board to provide a supportive, enriching environment for every student. And I look forward to a thoughtful discussion of the issues facing our district.
Okay. And last, Skip Shein. I think you're muted.
you. Good afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking Laurie and Susan and the League of Women Voters for hosting today's candidate forum. It is a critical piece of our democracy, and it starts at the grassroots and works its way up. We are the sort of the start of that mission of democracy and liberty. My family and I have lived in Glenview for 32 years. I've sent 4 children through the Glenbrook South. I've been intimately familiar with it, and my wife is an educator, so I certainly hear the teacher's perspective. Let me rephrase that, retired educator. So I do hear the teacher's perspective, at home as well. I've been on the board for 20 years. I believe that service provides a certain perspective on how an institution is run. I've been in business my whole life as a project manager working for very large corporations. And I have to say that it took quite a while to understand the difference of cost benefit we work through at the business corporate level and how that might be interpreted in the educational setting. It is quite different. I'm running again to ensure that your children and grandchildren receive the same high quality, broad spectrum education that my children received. My mission is to provide the financial and human resources needed to support the programs and services required to meet the needs of all students. I'm committed to making sure these opportunities, what we call the 4 A's, academics, athletics, arts, and activities, continue as long as I'm a member of the school board. Thank you.
Okay, and now we will go to the questions. And we will start with Marcelo Sztainberg. The pandemic brought with it unprecedented stresses and challenges for school districts. What is your assessment of how District 225 handled those challenges, and would you have done anything differently?
Thank you for the question. I would separate my answer in 2 sides. I would look at how the district handled it with respect to the students, and then how the district handled the situation with respect to the community. And I think there are some similarities and there are some things where a little bit divergent. I think as a district, as many districts did, we try at the beginning to navigate uncertainty, not understanding clearly what was the main direction that we had to take. So we had to rely on CDC and on other government organizations whose job and whose professionals determine the fate of our health treatment in general. And I think we were one of the first districts that we implemented a gradual coming back to the classroom. Even within us, between the people who wanted to come to the classroom right away and the people that had some hesitancy, I think we tried to work some sort of compromise on middle ground, because we recognized that kids needed to be in the classroom, and at the same time that we were stewards of the health of those kids and the families that those kids were going back to when they were coming back from school. Just because I'm running short of time, I think we could have done better from the point of view of working with the community, setting up rules for people to be able to come and talk respectfully and allowing for every side to be able to have a voice at our meetings. And I don't think, unfortunately, that worked as well as we all wanted to. And I would say it doesn't matter what side. Things got a little heat up, I understand. I think we should have done more to let people be able to express their opinion from every side.
All right. Sandy Muhlenbeck.
So I'm going to answer this from the perspective of a parent who had children attending the Glenbrooks. Both of my kids were in school at the time. My son graduated in 21. My daughter's going to graduate now in 23. And I have to say that I commend the board, because I cannot imagine what it would have been like to try to navigate that, because I know that you were getting guidance from multiple different agencies and frankly, a lot of conflicting guidance and people trying to make rules on the fly because we weren't exactly sure what we were doing. It's not a great situation to be in, and I know it was very fraught. So I do think the board did a very good job. And I do think that the one thing that I would point to as a parent during that time was that I thought could be improved. And I know this is something that the current board is working on, is I felt that the communication with the parents and the broader community was sometimes confusing and conflicting. And I think that just with everyone's being overwrought because the situation was so difficult, you know, those missteps in communication, I think caused there to be some lack of trust, loss of trust, I should say. And that was hard to get back. You know, I know that circumstances were very difficult to work in, so I don't want to suggest that I would have done any better. But I do think that that was something that needed to be handled better.
All right. Next, Skip Shein. You're on mute again.
I'm mute. I have a little bit of a noisy background. So I think we had some positives and some areas we can do better. I would like to say that none of us were professionally prepared to deal with a problem of this type. Not the administration, not the school board. And we received, as Sandy said, conflicting information from the jurisdictions who had control over our fate in many ways. The Cook County Department of Public Health, the Illinois School Board provided often conflicting, very delayed information. On the positive side, we got school open. We started with our most students in the greatest need. We got them back in school as soon as we could. We slowly added back other cohorts of students. It was very challenging. I think we did a decent job. I think we've learned and would do things possibly different the next time. The area where we absolutely struggled was communication to the community. We were not as timely as we could be, and that caused, I think, a lot of unnecessary anxiety for students, staff, and parents. One area where we certainly could have done better was explaining some of the limitations we were under by the jurisdictions. Cook County of Public Health has control.
I'm sorry, I need to stop you because we're out of time for that. Okay, Jim Geldermann.
Thank you. Not being privy to the advice and the information that the board had at the time, I feel reluctant to criticize or commend them on their reaction to this. But I will say that there were certain things that we knew early on that who was at risk, and students were not people at risk. There was a well-defined risk pool that should have been quarantined, and I questioned, the so-called experts who said everybody needed to be quarantined. There were numerous studies about masks that came out before the pandemic, and especially a very large study that came out in New Zealand that studied infectious disease and mass effect in Singapore. And it showed how ineffective masks are. And now the information is coming out that supports a lot of these things. I will say that I think the biggest downfall of this whole process was the stifling of debate and marginalizing people with different views. And this happened all up and down the scale. It's just not at the board level.
All right, thank you. Sandy, you'll be up next. Sandy Muhlenbeck. This question is, what do you see as the top needs of the district and how would you address them?
Well, gosh, I do think that from my perspective, I believe that one of the major needs that need to be addressed at the district level is the mental health of students. Our adolescents are troubled. They've been through a lot through the pandemic. But even more so, and for longer than that, you know, we recently had a CDC study come out that just demonstrates that adolescent mental health has gone through a major decline, even in, you know, over the past 10 years. I think that the board has a responsibility to the students to try to help them through these difficulties. We have a new health center. I'd like to try to, you know, leverage that as a resource to see what we could do to help with student mental health. I would like to see what we can do with the resources that we've had at the school, our psychologists, our social workers. I'd like to see what we could do. I think it's a great step that the board just approved having consistent late start days every week or almost every week for because I think kids need more sleep. That's hugely important, sleep hygiene for mental health. I'd like to see if we can do more of that in the future, but that's really going to be a focus of mine because I do believe that mental health is crucial and a bedrock for the success of our students.
Okay, Skip Shein, you're next. Don't forget to unmute.
Yes, thank you. I would like to parallel Sandy's comments regarding student mental health. This is a tremendous concern today, and we have, the current board has actually increased the number of providers, psychologists, and counselors to help us deal with some of the challenges faced by students. Students who were out of school for a year and a half have come back into the educational setting and in many ways exhibit behaviors that are counterproductive to their education and are causing them a lot of stress. Things like online bullying, fights in school, things we hadn't seen for many, many years in our schools. And we need to and have enhanced resources to help support these students work through their challenges and help them succeed. And if they're not feeling secure and healthy, this impacts their educational achievement, and it makes it difficult also for them to look forward into what they might want to be and what their next step in their development and education will be. So this is I think one of the most important things on our current docket that we are working on. Thank you.
Okay, Jim Geldermann.
Thank you. Start out, I am not a problem solver. My background is as a solution architect. And the difference is that problem solvers try to fix things and then walk away from it. Say there was an issue, we put a program together, it's done. In solution architecture, what we do is we develop frameworks, we develop support systems, and then we actually monitor the work that we're doing to see the effectiveness of it. And it's especially important that any of these programs that are put in place, that they are monitored, that they are reviewed, and to see if they're actually making the impact which we're projected to make, and also to try to harvest any unanticipated benefits that we may have gotten out of this. To get into the micro of that this is a problem or that is a problem, I would say most of the things that people are talking about today, I experienced back in high school 50 years ago. And so it goes to show that these issues that teenagers go through, especially at this time, are similar things that I experienced in my youth. So instead of trying to mitigate, instead of trying to eliminate these problems, it's more important that we try to mitigate or support the teenagers.
Okay, Marcelo Sztainberg.
So before starting with priorities, I would say, we don't say enough that the district is doing great things. People come to our district, move to our district because of the academic excellence and activities and the opportunities that our children have when they go to high school. And this is great. We don't say it enough. And I'm not going to claim the board credit for this because this took many years in the making. But we try to, and I think every board tries to keep that district at the top or being one of the top districts of the state. this comes at the same time with us realizing that our students are adolescents, that are children, really. They are older children, but they're still children. They face mental hurdles, they have faced relationship hurdles. And in this day and age, they face something that we didn't get to face when we were going to high school, which is all the exposure of social media, internet, different things that it's happened 365/7 nonstop, 24/7 as well. So we need to figure out a way how to keep doing the good things that we are doing, and at the same time understanding that these are children and that this is a time, critical time on their life in their development, and we need to help them. We need to help. Doesn't mean we need to dictate, and families need to get involved. To back to my original point, we need to find, as the board, we need to find a way to get people to participate. We would be able to take care of everybody, not the board, the families, the community, the staff, the teachers, everybody as a group. If we can find a way to increase our venues of collaboration and participation, get people to come and talk and participate, I think we would do better.
All right. The next question, question number 3, we'll start with Skip Stein. What do you see, Shein, I'm sorry. What do you see as the role of school board members, as opposed to teachers, administrators, and parents, in ensuring that the district effectively serves its students and the larger community?
So the school board functions in a unique oversight role. And that is really how the board operates. The board has one employee, one direct report, and that's the superintendent. Our job is to make sure that the values of the community are reflected, we reflect them, and that then the superintendent takes that information, that input from the board, and operationalizes it in terms of strategy, in terms of finance, in terms of learning, in terms of facilities, all of the things that make the district run. The superintendent runs the district. The board reflects community values. And I think that's really where we play. And there's a definite break point. We don't develop curriculum. We don't tell teachers what to do. Again, this is my opinion. I think that's very unhealthy, but we do set the general tone, direction, approve the budgets, review curriculum. When it comes to us, changes, materials, we have to approve them. That's what we do. Thank you.
All right. Jim Geldermann.
Yeah, thanks, Skip. That was a very clear and concise explanation. I would say, in promoting those the values in the community, and I think it's important that the concept of good citizenship, that the goal that students be able to embrace the principles and the goals, that we've set forth as a community, as a nation, is important. I think anything that the school does that has an adverse effect to those points, the board should step in and have the school explain, why their approach to that. And I think it's also important that the board makes sure that that all aspects of the district community remain, stay within their role and responsibility and not weave outside their lanes. Thank you.
Okay, Marcelo Sztainberg.
Thank you. I think one thing that I keep telling myself is that we are representatives of the community. We bring our opinions, we bring our experience, but the reality is that it's 7 people in the room, that part of our charge is to represent the community. And many times that means also doing the mental exercise of what about the people that may not think about things the way I think about them. They have to have a voice as well. So as representatives of the community, I think one of our hardest or most important job is to be able to listen, to be able to open channels to listen and to hear what our community says, what our community needs, what our community brings. On the other hand, and to Skip's point, the district needs to be run by the professionals, by the people that invested the time and effort to learn the trade, Meaning I wouldn't go to a doctor unless they had a medical degree, and I wouldn't go to any profession unless they have a degree. They invested the time and the resources to learn their profession. We do have to have oversight overall, but we need to invest so the district can have the best professionals that we can get, teachers, staff, leadership positions. And at the same time, we need to be mindful of the resources that we have. We're lucky that we are in a district that has access to good resources, but we need to be good stewards fiscally of those resources. And we need to make sure that those resources can support what our students need and what these professionals need to be able to do a good job on their professions.
All right, and now to Sandy Muhlenbeck.
I think that, as other folks have said, it's important for the board to remember that they are representing the constituents of the district, all the constituents of the district, and that the board listen to and hear the points of view of all of those people. And make sure that they feel heard, because I think one of the important things for having a good relationship between the district and the community is that constituents and community members feel as if what they're saying to the board is being taken into account in a respectful way. That being said, the board also has a responsibility towards its mission. And I think that its mission is to provide a learning community that reflects the values of the entire community. So that is a difficult balancing act. There are going to be disagreements. People are going to have different ideas about things, but we need to be able to find the commonalities and be able to translate that into policies and procedures at the school level that have our high schools reflect the broader community. So that's the role I think the board plays. I do think that all the other folks mentioned in your question, the families, the teachers, the staff, the broader community who don't have students in the school, all of those people have roles to play, but that's what the board does.
All right. Next question. How would you work to ensure that all students, including LGBTQ students, feel safe, supported, and represented in the district? And this one goes to Jim Geldermann to start.
Thank you. I think it's important that we recognize that there are predators within the school, both students and maybe some other people associated with the, who have access to the campus. And if people are feeling unsafe on campus, then it's incumbent upon the administration to find the people, these offenders, and to discipline them properly. The fact that we should not be making accommodations so that these bullies or predators or whoever is causing these problems on campus get free rein on whatever areas that people feel unsafe to go into. So I think it's important that instead of segregating people into certain classes or certain types of groups that may or may not be more prone to be preyed upon by these people, that the discipline of the school should be able to identify these offenders and to either discipline them or get them to modify their behavior.
Okay, Marcelo Sztainberg.
I think it's one, we cannot control what happens outside of in the general world. We have a responsibility to create a climate within our community, or at least within our schools, where people can feel that they belong. That regardless who they are, where they come from, what sexual orientation may have, or what ideas they may have in terms of political views or anything, they should feel that this is their school. This is a public school, and we have a responsibility to every single one of the students. I think our kids, sometimes as parents, you may forget that whatever group you're talking to, this could be your son or your daughter, or this could be your friend's son or daughter, or this could be your son or daughter's best friend. And everybody deserves respect, even if they are not related to you or they are not your son or daughter's friends. Everybody walks through that door with the same rights and expectation that your son or daughter walks to the doors every day. And part of our responsibility is to create that environment, being able to speak, being able to understand that not everybody may think the same way, but being able to also identify the difference to what is a difference of opinion and what is hate, which is what we don't want in our community from any point of view. We can take difference of opinions. Our children are smart enough and they work enough to understand that people may think differently. But we definitely should draw a line, and kind of like as the previous candidate was saying, in what we identify that may not be just an opinion, that may be an opinion that expresses a little bit of hate. And I think we need to stand firm, at least on that line.
Okay. Sandy Muhlenbeck.
I think it's really important that when our students come to school, they feel welcome at school and they don't just feel tolerated at school, or that, okay, at least someone isn't going to try to hurt me. I think they should feel welcome and included and celebrated. And I think the Glenbrooks do a terrific job with that most of the time. I think that that is something that our schools strive for, our teachers and staff and our students strive for too, is to recognize the humanity in all of our students and how everyone has something to offer. And I think that it's, I love to see when the schools have programs that celebrate the differences and the things that each of our students can offer to the community, the whole learning community, and that they can see themselves as being viewed as special and being viewed as valued. And I think that the way that you do that, the way we will continue to do that, is to make sure that everyone's point of view is heard and respected, that people can see themselves in the things that they're learning, that they are given opportunities to express themselves in the wonderful arts and athletics and activities that our schools offer. I think the Glenbrooks do a good job, and I want to make sure that we continue to do that.
All right. Skip Shein.
Well, at the board level, we are responsible for setting the tone. It starts at the board and filters down through administration to building and administration to staff. And that tone then it creates our culture. And it is our responsibility to create a culture that is safe for every single student, no exceptions. We need to have, and I believe we do have a zero tolerance policy for bullying. Students who identify as LGBTQ often are faced with bullying, not necessarily on campus, often through social media. It is our responsibility. We have to step up, take the lead, and make it clear that this is simply not tolerated within the Glenbrooks. Then, and I believe we're working well, moving along in this path, but have programs that support understanding of individuals, be they students or staff, who are different than we are. I always believe we should seek to understand before we seek to be understood. And when we look at the world through that lens, I think we can be successful and provide that kind of environment where every single student feels valued. Thank you.
Okay. Next question. In Illinois, it's unlawful to leave firearms unlocked and accessible in households with minors under 14 years of age. What is your opinion on safe gun storage, and how do you propose to encourage responsible gun storage practices among members of the school community? And this starts with Marcelo Sztainberg.
I'll go back to my different upbringing, no better nor worse. I grew up in a different country, so each country has different set of issues. I think the key word is responsibility, and the key word is to have this, to implement the laws as they are, and to have this clear for every member of the community. And back to a point that I was making earlier, we foster a community where individuals can trust each other, and different families and different upbringings and have different, maybe they have different access to guns. Some they use it for sports, for whatever use they use. they do have to understand that, we foster that our kids go to other kids' houses as well. So it's not just a decision regarding a law. Sometimes we as families make decisions that can impact children of other families that we normally open our doors to. So first of all, this law, as in any other law, this should be followed. There's no difference between gun or any traffic laws or anything else. If a law is there, families should follow that law. But on second hand, we need to understand that this is a susceptible issue. So families need to understand when my son or my daughter goes to a house, regardless of my use of having guns or not, or my views on that, I need to make sure that my children are safe in my house, but I also need to make sure that other children that may come to my house are safe as well. So I think, I'm not a politician, but I think laws are made up for a reason. So we need to make sure that we stay on the right side of those.
Okay. Sandy Muhlenbeck. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I don't know exactly what the board can do when it comes to issues of gun control necessarily. However, I do have my own opinions as far as, gun safety. Obviously, if you have a gun in the home, you want to have it secured. And when, my children were small, and as Marcelo was saying, when they were visiting other families' homes, and this would be something I would inquire about. And it would be the same way that, I wouldn't have my child ride in a car with someone who doesn't have the appropriate car seat for them. It's just sort of common sense safety. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I do think, just since we're on the topic of guns, I do think that I work in a public school, and I work in the front office of a public school. And my colleagues and I think about what we would do, or what we would have to do if we were to have a situation at our school, like's happened in so many schools in our country. And it is truly astounding to me that these are things that I think about when I'm in a primary school. That when I'm walking down a hallway, I think, are these classrooms safe? It's a sad statement as to where we are right now. But to go back to the question, I do think that each parent then is going to have to take some personal responsibility with respect to protecting their children.
Okay, Skip Shein.
Well, laws, not to state the obvious, but laws around guns and gun control are clearly outside the purview of the Board of Education. Our goal is to make the school safe. So we have obviously a zero tolerance policy for any kind of weapons in school. And that's as it should be they knives, guns, or any other kind of weapon. I think students are very, very negatively impacted by gun violence and gun crime. When we were kids, you worried about, atomic bombs, stop, drop, get under the desk, that kind of thing. Today it's active shooter drills. I mean, it is insane that our kids that this is part of their normal school ecosystem today, is gun safety. And how do you react in an active shooter situation, and to have to practice that. I support any reasonable, measure of gun control. Going back quickly to what Sandy said, I ask this question when my kids go to others' homes. Are there guns in the house? How are they secured? If I'm not comfortable, my kids didn't go to that house. And then, that's how I feel about it. So, we don't make the laws at the school board level, but we do enforce what we can.
Right. Jim Geldermann.
Thank you. So I had achieved a marksman rating before I entered high school. At my high school, we had a rifle range in the basement of one of the buildings. At my sophomore year, I had to make the decision whether to join the rifle team or to join the wrestling team. I joined the wrestling team. The gun safety begins with gun familiarity. So if you're not familiar with guns, you're not going to be safe around guns. This idea that that responsible gun owners are not locking up their guns, they do not secure their guns properly, is it's not my experience, either at the gun range or in other people's homes. People who are responsible, who have a FOID card or a CCL license, take great care because they were responsible gun owners. It's the people who have illegal guns that are not that should not have guns in their possession are the ones who are causing these problems, who leave guns around the house, who enter gun-free zones and start firing guns at people. Responsible gun ownership, which means following the laws and being responsible for, to make sure your firearms are secure properly, are not the problem.
Okay, and this is going to be the last question before we get to our closing remarks. And this one will start with Sandy. What is your view of parental rights in determining the curriculum content for social emotional education, including non-traditional sex education, and the appropriateness of explicit content for LGBTQ books in school libraries? And what do you believe is the role of the Board of Education in determining this curriculum and books in the library?
I'm struggling with the term non-traditional sex education. I'm not exactly sure what that is. However, I will say this. I'm going to go back to something I said at the beginning, which is that we have a fantastic group of teachers and staff at the Glenbrooks. These are professionals, and I trust their judgment when it comes to picking curricular materials, including sex education materials, because that's part of what health education is. It includes sex education. That being said, there is a process. There is a policy that the District 225 board has. If a parent has a problem, or if a student has a problem, not just a parent, but also a student, has a problem with something that is being included in their curriculum, there is a process they can go through to say that this is not something that they think is appropriate for the class that they're taking. If it's an elective, they can elect to move into another elective. If it's something else, it goes through some procedures, including having a committee, including parents, students, teachers, to look at the material, and then it can get escalated all the way up to the board. So I believe that that's a good policy. And if you have an issue with the way the curriculum is being taught, there's a policy you can follow in order to have that addressed by the board.
All right, Skip Shein.
Thank you. It's a very germane question in today's environment. And so you asked a couple of questions kind of linked together there. Right. So I'd like to address the issue of the library. And I don't believe there should be any censorship of materials as long as it's not pornographic in a school library. I think students at this age are capable of reading, analyzing, selecting materials. Certainly, nobody is forced to read something they don't want to, but I believe this material should be available. If they're in any way relevant to what we're doing in the school, I would say I just don't believe in censorship. That's something that cuts both ways. What I censor for you, you may feel is appropriate, and what you censor for me, I may say, I can't believe, why would you censor something like that? And some of the looking at the other side of your question, we provide, as Sandy clearly stated, we provide opt-out opportunities for students and their families for anything they feel uncomfortable being asked to do, in the area of sex education development. And I think that's wholly appropriate. And completely support providing that space for students and families. Nobody should be forced to interact with materials or curriculum in this area if it goes against their beliefs. Thank you.
Okay. Jim Geldermann.
So I'm a trustee for the country's oldest and largest LGBTQ conservative organization. And I've had extensive, I've talked with them a lot. I've also talked with a group they support, Gays Against Grooming. I think my concern is, where do we cross the line between education and grooming children into certain types of behavior? We see, when we look at Jeffrey Epstein, we look at other types of people who've gone out and groomed children to become toys in their games. What's most important is that we're teaching people that to respect their body, to respect themselves, and to be able to say no, and to identify things that are potentially harmful to them. I agree with Skip that things in the library should not be pornographic, and if something can't be read at a school board meeting out loud, it probably should not be in the library. Thank you.
Okay, Marcelo Sztainberg.
Thank you. I'll start by going back to a point that I made earlier. Our responsibility is to hire the right professionals. And this is not just simply teachers. Our schools hire social workers, our schools hire school psychologists, people that could understand and have invested time and their education to understand what could be appropriate or not appropriate to a particular age. I've been working on my life in higher education. I cannot claim that I understand what is the difference of what's appropriate at 13 versus 15 versus 17. That's not anything that I ever studied. And my job as a board member is to make sure that the people that make those decisions is the people that spend the time, read the resources, and understand the science of appropriateness in this case for particular curriculum. I'm with almost everybody today here that libraries are a different point of view. And in this century, to try to think that the libraries are the place that would bring some wrong ideas, if you want to call it that way, into our children. Most of our children have a cell phone. Most of our children have access to the internet. If we think that the point of control is the small library in a high school, you need to revisit your access to your children's information. Finally, on that point, I would say all of us as parents, we need to ask ourselves, who do we trust to give information to our children? Who do we trust to answer the question? Because it's not the case that our children are going to come home and ask their questions to us as parents. And if you have teenagers, you know that most of the time it's not the case. Our children not necessarily may want to ask some questions from us. Do we trust our teachers? Do we trust our schools? Or do we trust the internet? That would be my final point.
All right. Now we are ready for your closing statements. And we will start with Skip Shein.
Okay. So thank you, and thank you for providing this opportunity to you individually and the League of Women Voters so that we can express our opinions to the community. The Glenbrooks bind our community together through a shared vision for our children's future. The board works collaboratively with parents, staff, and community to meet the needs of each and every student. We value new ideas while also honoring the 75 years of the Glenbrook tradition. The board plays the primary role of reflecting the values of the community. And in so doing, we bring fiscal discipline, programming, and growth for our students' future. This is why people move to our community, and people are still moving to this community for the schools. I believe we are doing many things well, many things right. We can always grow and improve. One should seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Listening promotes empathy, and that empathy generates quality solutions to problems. And I think that my history with the district is reflective of that belief. Thank you.
Okay, Jim Geldermann.
Thank you. I want to thank the league and my co-participants. I think this has been an informative debate. Closing, I'd like to, part of the role of the district is to impart a set of principles that we all share as citizens. Principle by its nature is a guiding star, not a destination. Principles do not suggest conformity or acquiescence. Rather, principles call us to be someone more than we are. We refer to it as living up to, which denotes that we become more than what we are. I believe that anything at its core that divides us or is detrimental to our grand experiment should not be suppressed, but rather exposed for what it is through vigorous debate and discussion. I think in front of the board, discussion is more important than debate. In discussion, it's we're not trying to win people over. We're not trying to force them to our will, but it is a way for people to be able to get a sense that their views are being heard and not being suppressed. So I would ask for your vote on April 4th, and thank you very much.
All right, next is Marcelo Sztainberg.
Thank you, and I'll reiterate my appreciation for the league for putting this forum together and for my colleagues here to spend the time and help us learn more from each other and the community to learn more from about each other. In my case, as an incumbent, I think people have the opportunity to know where I stand in most of the issues, at least those issues that came through the board. And hopefully more important than that, people know that I'm willing to listen, that it's not just simply what I bring to the table on my own knowledge, but as we pay attention to people coming to the beginning of the meetings and presenting with 3 minutes, or people sending us email. I take this seriously. I know this is a volunteer job, but part of this is not just simply, I didn't come as, sorry for borrowing Jim from something I said earlier, I didn't come to the board with a particular agenda, but I came to the board as willing to serve. I'm very appreciative of what this community has given to my family, and I see this as my way of bringing it back, or try to give a little bit back. I think part of one of the good things that this current board has, and I share with my colleague here, Skip, is that we try to always arrive to some consensus. We don't think the same way, but we work together with the understanding that if we can get to a consensus on an idea, the community will be better served. So that's my commitment if people are willing to bring me into another term. And then finally, I would say I'll appreciate definitely your vote. I also would appreciate if people will show up to our meetings and participate in our current conversations.
All right, and finally, Sandy Muhlenbeck.
Like everyone, I just want to thank the League of Women Voters and Laurie and Susan for giving us this opportunity to talk through some things that I think are important. I believe that I will bring valuable experience and new perspectives that will assist the board in accomplishing its mission of providing a learning community in which every student can thrive. And I want to emphasize every student, because I do believe that that is what public schools should do. Every kid who walks into one of the Glenbrooks should feel welcome and included, and get a great education and go out and do great things in the world. I want to encourage everyone to please take the time to vote. It's an important election. These municipal elections are becoming more and more important, I think. Marcelo and Skip and I have a great website called glenbrooksforstudentsfirst.com, and I encourage you to take a look at that, because I think it lays out nicely our goals and priorities. There's also a link where you can contact us with any of your thoughts or concerns, and everyone likes feedback, so that would be great. Just to say also, if you don't want to actually go to a board meeting, you can go by Zoom. It's great. That's what I've been doing, and I've learned a lot by attending that way. So I encourage that. But most of all, I just want to thank you all for your time and attention. Please get out and vote, tomorrow, starting tomorrow and through the 4th.
All right. Thank you all so much. This brings our forum to a close. You're on mute.
I want to thank our candidates and to all the viewers who will be watching this subsequent to today. And once again, as the president of the League of Women Voters, I must and do encourage all of you to make sure that your voices are heard and that you don't let others make decisions for you. Please cast your vote by April 4th. Thank you.